Live life your way. It is Tuesday evening, and I am excited because it's still quite nice and warm outside. And I've got a t-shirt on, and I came all the way from Brooklyn in a t-shirt. I'm not cold, so that's great. So tonight is my favorite night. It's Tuesday night. Let's get warmed up and ready to have some conversations. So tonight we're going to be talking about sexual assault. And I know there's a lot of people out there who have been victim to, or have been, victim, have had sexual assault happen to them, who are not victims, but like have been, in that situation. So tonight we're going to talk about that. But first of all, I want to talk about my wonderful completion of diabetes, as I like to call it, the beaties. So I don't know if many of you remember last year, I talked about it, but I was diagnosed with diabetes this year, approximately, I'd say 3 years. And I said that I was going to kick it. And I want you to know that I have kicked it. I have kicked it. I'm really excited. Can I tell you what happened, right? So approximately 4 months ago, I don't remember the time because I'm not good with time. I had this insight that said to me, Noreen, you're not eating enough vegetables. And so I was like, okay, I'll start eating more vegetables. It was just like, it was one of those things. You're not eating vegetables, start eating vegetables. So I started eating vegetables. And then I was like, I was getting these things on the side of my tongue, on both sides of my tongue, with these like white things. I don't even know what to describe them as, but it was like dead skin. Now, a tongue is not supposed to have dead skin on it. When your tongue has dead skin on it, there's got to be something going on. So what happened for me was I would wake up in the morning and I would see this thing and I would try to brush it off with my toothbrush, or I'd try to pick it off, pull it off. And I'm like, your tongue is really sensitive. If you touch your tongue and you start to pull stuff off, it shouldn't peel off. And if it does peel off, one, it should bleed. And two, shit shouldn't be on your tongue. It just shouldn't be on your tongue, right? And so my instinct said to me, Noreen, this is what metformin is doing. Like, this is them drugs that you're taking, metformin for diabetes. And so I said to myself, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not fucking doing this anymore. I just got really mad at myself in the bathroom mirror and said, I'm not fucking doing this anymore, right? And so I happened to me, like when you start to prepare and you start to say, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. It's like the universe becomes aligned with you and sends you people that are going to give you conversations where you can get certain insights. Well, I want to be a big shout out to, even though he doesn't listen to my show, big shout out to the big bro in the barbershop next door to my house, who told me he was also had diabetes for 6 years, but his A1C was only at six points. And I was like, how can you be so big and fat and have an A1C of like 6? And here I am, I'm tiny and fat. And my A1C is like 9 and 9.8 and 10 and stuff like that. And I was like, this doesn't make no sense. So we had a conversation. He told me that he was juicing. So he juiced once a day, and he ate. Well, I didn't eat what he ate. What he called healthy is not what I would call healthy, but he was healthy, and he wrote a paper about it, and I read his paper, and I declared that I was going to start juicing. And as luck would have it, 2 hours later, somebody knocked on my door from my building and said, Noreen, we're moving, and we have these things that come in and look in my apartment and see if there's anything you want. And my automatic was, no, I don't need anything. But then I remembered I need a juicer. So 2 hours later, I got 2 juicers show up. So I started juicing that evening. And so in juicing that evening, I just decided that I was not going to do any more carbs. So there was no flour, no potatoes, no yams, no muffins, no cake, none of that stuff. Just all of that just went, no sugar. And then I started to read the labels on everything. So if it had 1 gram of sugar, it wasn't going in my mouth, right? If it had 6 grams of sugar, that certainly wasn't going anywhere near me. And I realized that every single thing had sugar in it. Every single solitary thing in the middle aisle of the supermarket has sugar in it. And I was like, what the fuck? A sausage. Sausages had sugar in it. Yogurt had sugar in it. Cottage cheese, you know how disgusting that is, but I still like it, had sugar in it. And I was just like, you know what? This is evil. This is straight up evil, right? So I cut all those things out. So I haven't had sugar in close to, I would say 4 months. I haven't had sugar. I haven't had bread, a piece of cake, a glass of wine, nothing. So I was starting to live like this, juice every day, eating lots of good fat, avocados, meat, the whole 9 yards. Another thing that we don't have in America is our meat doesn't have fat in it. If you could go to the ritziest, to the low-lifest of grocery store or supermarket, to the highest end, it doesn't have fat on it. That's just ridiculous, you know? And another thing that I realized is that egg whites spikes my insulin. Snacking was a thing that spiked my insulin. Now my stomach has gone down a lot. It used to be like I looked like 9 months pregnant, so I'd lose weight but my stomach would be really big. That was insulin. Oh my God, right? So anyway, long story short of it, went to the doctor's last week, and she says to me, "Are you taking the medication?" And I went like this, mm-hmm. So she goes, "No, are you taking the medication?" And I said, mm-hmm. Just check my numbers, right? So. Because we have that kind of relationship where we can giggle. I'm sweating. I still haven't gotten rid of the pauses though. Anyway, so she does my A1C and she comes back and she's so excited. Literally, she could be dancing, right? She was like peeing in her pants. She goes, "I don't know what you're doing, but your A1C is really great. It's gone down to 6.9. I want it at 6.5. So you got 4 points to do." She goes, "Are you taking?" I said, "I ain't taking that damn medication. I haven't taken that medication in 4 months." And I told her what happened, and she didn't even know what that white thing on the side, but it's gone. My tongue is back to normal. It no longer looks like a cauliflower. And the things on the side are gone. Normal. Normal, right? So it really, even my doctor was saying, like, "You're not drinking wine, you're not eating any bread, you're not eating cake." I'm like, "No, I can't do it." She goes, "But you can." I'm like, "I can't." Because when I eat anything that has sugar in it, immediately my skin feels like pins and needles, right? So look, it's with food. Who is it that says somebody from the past? It was what was his name? Is he the Greek guy of doctor? The doctor guy. I can't remember his name, but you know who I'm talking about, right? He said that make food your medicine and medicine your food. Like you can heal your body with the right sorts of foods. But this diet that we have today that's filled with sugar, it is going to kill us. Until we take a stand and don't buy it anymore, it's going to kill us. But you know what? Diabetes is not going to kill me. Old age is going to kill my ass, but diabetes is not going to do it. Anyway, so on with the show. That was my story of the week from my life. But on with the show. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Mr. Brett Kavanugh, and we're going to be talking about sexual assault. So if you're anybody, not just women, if you've been sexually assaulted, call in at 877-480-4120 and let's talk about it. So do we still have a caller? We have a caller on the line. Christine.
Hi, Noreen. It's Christine, your friend.
Hi,
I was
Christine.
on your show.
Hi, Christine. How are you? What's going on?
I'm good, thanks. I actually, when I saw that what the show was about, I thought that I would call in because just to share my experience in the hopes of, maybe people understanding what happens and what happened with this whole case. And I really could relate to it. So anyway, shall I begin?
Sure, please share.
Well, there was a lot of the testimony that was talked about, and the one thing that struck me was her words where I thought he could kill me. And when
the words that struck me were, "I wanted 2 front doors." Like
what? I'm sorry?
She said that she wanted 2 front doors. And her husband was like, "Why the hell do you want 2 front doors?" And then it all came out in therapy. And she started to share about what happened to her. So here's a woman in her house. She wants 2 front doors. So go ahead. She said that.
Well,
go ahead.
Anyway, so what basically happened was I was 12 years old and I was walking home from school, and it was people I knew, boys I knew. I was very naive. I didn't really know what was happening, and it started out with, oh, come with us and come hang out, and and then it continued. It started out friendly, but then of course it was, we want you to do stuff, and I didn't know what I was doing, and then we took pictures of you, so if you don't come with us, we're going to tell your parents. So, when you're 12 years old, your brain doesn't think straight.
Right.
I was more afraid of my father than I was of this abuse. And I remember it going on almost the whole year, and then
a whole year this happened to you.
Oh, yeah. What comes out in the story. So by the time it was the end of the school year, and, of course, by then, you've been called slut, whore, you've had, people like, were you near my boy? Like people just assumed that you were a willing participant. And I'll never forget that we all cut out of school the last week of school, and we're at the beach, and two of the boys showed up and pretty much demanded I go with them. And I said, no, I don't want to go. And they held me underwater. And I remember looking up. One of them was stepping on my chest and holding me down. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm drowning. I'm going to die. I'm going to have to go with them.
Right.
And I was kicking and screaming the whole way. And all I can remember was everyone staring, and nobody did anything.
Not even the adults?
I was taken in a boat in the middle of a bay to an abandoned sea house, like a shack, and pretty much forced to do whatever I was told to do, and or be left there and die. And this is we're talking in the 70s, no cell phones, no nothing, and it was pretty much just finally got dumped on the side of the waterway and crawled my way up this, and got home. And
I hate to do this for you, but I'm going to ask you.
Never told anyone.
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought, and we'll be right back because we need to take a break. So I hate to do it to you, but I have to ask you to hold that thought. Okay?
Okay.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Did you know you've been playing poker your whole life, even if you've never played a hand of cards? Hi, I'm Ellen Lakin, author of Poker Woman and host of the new show, Poker Divas. On the show, I talk about how poker strategy helps you win in business, life, and love. Tune in live every Thursday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network. Are you stuck in a rut? Negative thoughts, feelings, and conversations got you down? Hi, I'm Noreen Sumter, the Potentiator. Tune in every Tuesday at 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time and listen for new ideas on my show, Beyond Potential, Live Life Your Way, on talkradio.nyc.
Who do you want to connect with?
Are you an entrepreneur or intrapreneur looking to build your following?
Welcome to our show.
Follow Me Friday with Joan
and Priya.
Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern
on talkradio.nyc.
We're your digital connectors. Woo woo!
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Hi, Christine.
Hey, I'm here.
Thank you for hanging in there with us. It just seemed tonight that was an extra long break, but I understand the nature of why it was an extra long break. This is a necessary conversation and it needs to be had. So they had their foot on you under the water. They were drowning you. What triggered you, I'm sure, was when she said, I thought I was going to die. Is that what triggered you?
That's when I knew at that moment that happened. It happened. And you never forget those faces, and you never forget who it was.
Right.
You absolutely do not. And even though I kept, it turned out later, and I told my guidance counselor, and you can imagine being 12, 13 years old, and you tell your guidance counselor, and his response to me back then, which is the same now, was, well, boys will be boys, I'll talk to them. So much of what our culture has always subscribed to when it comes to this kind of abuse, it's like, oh, it was just accepted. It turned out in the end that I was one of 7 girls, and one girl was so badly abused that she was hospitalized that it came out. And that's when the police came and told my parents. Nothing ever happened. Probably if I had grown up in the time of social media and things like that, this might have been all over. You would have, heard this terrible story. But, this happens all the time. And then I didn't talk about it from, I guess that sort of started a lot of destructive behavior, but I didn't probably get back in touch with it until when I turned 40 and I got cancer, and I was trying to work on the emotions. And then I started to do trauma resolution, where you go back into this experience and you relive it, only this time in your mind, you take control and you fight back. Right. And it actually really helped.
Did you ever, have you ever been able to confront these boys, men, well, who are now men, probably have children of their own?
A few of people have contacted me. I couldn't I couldn't even stay in my town. I was I had to get out of there. I think it actually forced me to, go on to have a great career. All of this adversity really had it was the catalyst in a sense, a negative one at that, but it sort of forced me. And in recent years, a few people have contacted me through Facebook, and I hesitated, but yet I went through their friends and saw some of the abusers with their daughters. And the thought that went through my head is, do you ever look at your daughter? Do you ever remember the time that do you ever feel bad for what you did?
Right.
And then I just politely declined. I wrote back and said, I think I left the town for a reason.
Right.
And sometimes you leave the past where it is. I had to
How has this Kavanagh, Dr. Ford situation triggered you?
I mean, it triggered me. It triggered feeling that I felt her emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I've encountered boys like him.
Right.
You see, he's not a man. That's what boys do.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? I'm not boy shaming, but that mentality of boys will be boys, and whether it was with alcohol or not with alcohol, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's the abusive behavior that has continued in society.
Right. Okay.
And so it made me know that even if she didn't.
So what do you want to? Let's ask
the
the question here. What do you want to say out there? What do you want to say to boys, men, people, that are out there that are actually could be listening to this show tonight, could be listening to this show in a few months? What do you want to say to a boy or a man that is conducting himself in this way, committing these kinds of behaviors?
I mean, especially, I think there's 2 things I'd like to say, which is, number one, that mothers should teach their sons how to respect women.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important role for mothers. And the same with fathers, to teach their daughters to be respectful. And then combined, I guess.
When you say be respectful, were you being disrespectful? I don't think so.
No, I don't mean, I mean about, how to be a street smart kid. If you nurture your kid with self-esteem and you teach them, I always go over in my head, oh God, if I hadn't gone, there's a part of me that had to come to some sort of.
Okay, so I'm going to say, you said that you were a young girl of 13. You were naive.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was going on. You went with them. Then you had shame. You couldn't, this thing happened to
Yeah.
you. You had no one to turn to because you didn't want to be called names and you didn't want to. It's the same old story over and over again. Yeah, it's not like you could have gone to your mom and said, oh, Mom, the boys, did this and I went with them and they did this. And, now I'm a victim. They're threatening me. You couldn't. That you had shame. You didn't want to get in trouble. That's what 13-year-olds do. So I think that what there is for you to do is just like to forgive yourself for, just forgive yourself in some way.
But also that the other thing is that.
And not blame yourself.
I was also, I think nowadays kids, especially if they're nurtured, but if they have nurturing parents, that they can go to them and talk about things that happen and don't let it go on so long. It's a horrible, like listening to that woman speak, I felt like it was me speaking up there.
It was you speaking
and
up
I
there.
think,
it was you speaking up there. She was speaking for all women.
Yep. And I think that the takeaway is that, I always liked what, I was in therapy for years, but my therapist always told me something, and she said, turn your scars into stars.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned to talk to people and be able to talk to young people, even about just be careful. Don't,
I think it's more than just being careful. I think it's because we can tell our children to be careful, but to be careful of what? What is this thing that if you're 13 or 12 or 8 or 9, what is this thing that we have to be careful of? Because nobody actually says it. You know what I mean? That thing that we have to be careful of. I'm going to just say like what I got. I have a little neighbor that used to live in my building. She's not there anymore. And one of the things I said to her was, no one is supposed to touch you pretty much from the head down, right? Meaning from the top of your head to the base of your feet. No one is supposed to touch you. No one is supposed to touch your hoo-hoo. No one is, and she'd be like, hoo-hoo? What's my hoo-hoo? Say it again, hoo. No, nobody's supposed to touch you. Nobody's supposed to touch your vagina. Nobody's supposed to touch your butthole. Nothing. Plain English, right? No one is supposed to put their fingers at anything, their mouth, anywhere, right? And she'd laugh. And I said, no, I'm serious. This is not funny, right? She said, not even ex, meaning not even her brother. And I was like, not even your brother. And so every time I would see her, like when she went away for a weekend or whatever, I would say, did anybody touch you? And she'd be like, no. But what there was is like, did anybody touch you in a way that made you feel uncomfortable? Did anybody say, if you tell anyone, I'm going to kill mommy, I'm going to kill your friends, I'm going to kill you? Still talk, because people threaten children in a way that they are afraid to talk. So if we're going to educate our children, we have to educate them in a way that they know what this thing that they have to be careful of. Because if you just say, be careful, that's a whole world of stuff, So I'm going to say, like, street smarts or no street smarts. It happened to you, and, you could have been the most street smart kid and it would still happen to you. Because when that stuff happens, some people can speak, some people can't speak. It doesn't matter if you're 8 or 80. I have a friend who was just violated by another friend, and a friend, I can't talk about it too much, but she could not speak. And she's a grown woman. She was so in shock and so violated that she could not speak about it. She couldn't open her mouth. So it's not about, you need to be street smart, so you need to be this, or you need to be that. It's when this shit happens, right? People have to, I don't even know, because I can't even talk about it, Mike. I can't even discuss it. I mean, the closest I've ever come to anything like that was when I was in Florida. I was about 17 at the time. I was in Florida, went to see a boyfriend, and he had me stay with friends of his. And the deal was I would watch this woman's baby at night. And one night I've just gotten there, I think it's like 2 days, and I'm sleeping in bed, and I wake up with her boyfriend sitting on the edge of my bed. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's what I woke, because I'm one of these people, I can wake up and I'm alive, right? And I'm like, what's going on? And he says, oh, my girlfriend doesn't give me sex. That's your fucking problem. That's what I said. It's your fucking problem. It's not my problem, right? I said, and you know what? Frederick will bust your ass, right? So then he got up and left. That night, I took a knife, a big knife, and I had it under my pillow because it was either me or him, right? But some people don't have that capacity to think, well, you know, it's either me or him. Some people are just so shell-shocked and stuck and stopped that they don't know what to do. So I can't you have to be able to listen to a person. You have to be able to hear them. When they say this happened to me, I'm more disgusted with the women that have said, oh, I don't believe her. I'm more disgusted with those women who didn't take on sisterhood.
It happened.
You know, who didn't take on sisterhood and hear her out. It's like, I read this article and it's about being a member of the cool girl party, right? You want to be a member of, I don't believe her. I trust the boys. Bullshit. Well, anyway, we have to take a break, and I'm just going to say thank you for calling in. Thank you.
Yep.
And like, if you have, you know, just be strong. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, like I said, I've turned this scar into a star, and I talk to people and mentor them, and by letting people be heard and be able to talk about it is the way towards healing.
And tell little boys and little girls what it is they have to be mindful of.
The truth.
Yeah, what they have to be mindful of.
Yes,
okay?
Exactly. That's the stuff. All right, you take care.
Thank
Great
you so
show
much.
Again.
Thank you so much for calling in. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Are you into comics, movies, and pop culture at large? What about music and TV? Then you're in for a treat. This is Michael Dolce, your host on TalkingAlternative.com. I've been professionally writing comic books, screenplays, and music articles for almost 15 years. Catch my show, Secrets of the Sire, at its new primetime slot, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and get the inside scoop on the pop culture universe you love to talk about. For more info, go to secretsofthesire.com.
Are you feeling unhappy with your body, shape, or size? Ever feel out of control with food? I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul. Join me to uncover the root to these imbalances and discover a permanent solution to living a healthy life. Join us every Wednesday at my new time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
So this is Noreen Sumter, and we're back on Beyond Potential, Live Life Your Way. And we just had a conversation with Christine, who was victimized, molested by a group of boys when she was like 12, 13 years old. And what triggered her conversation was when Dr. Ford said, I felt like I was going to die. Christine was under the water at the beach, and they were standing on her chest and suffocating her in the water. And she said that she was going to die. And she knew that Dr. Ford was telling the truth, because that's a conversation you never forget. I've never been underwater. I've never felt like I stared death in the face. But she knew that Dr. Ford was telling the truth, right? I am frustrated and actually disappointed by the women that have gone on camera, in Facebook, in the papers, and all these different places, and have said that they don't believe her. To be honest, I don't believe her. The woman said that she was molested, right? How can you not believe her? she's been wearing this scar for what, 30 years almost? And she came out because she wanted to make a difference. Here's a man that said he's for women's rights. Now, I had a conversation earlier today with a friend of mine, and she said that, you know, when Obama was going for presidency and they found out that he had smoked weed, and they said to him, "Did you smoke weed?" He said, "Yes, I smoke weed." And he knew it was illegal, but he did it anyway, and he owned up to it. Now, you know, Brett Kavanugh at the time was a petulant little fuck boy, right? Who was a youngster who was drinking. They had no supervision in the house. There were girls, boys drinking in the house. No supervision, right? He could have said, you know what? I was a punk. I was a punk boy that was drunk. And yes, I jumped on her and was feeling her up and stuff like that. And I know now as a grown man, that was irresponsible of me, right? And I apologize to her, and I apologize to all the women that I say I'm a stand for. I bet you, what do you think would have happened if he said that? What do you think we would have come this far with this shit? They would have said to him, you know, I think people would have probably voted for him because he was straight. But no, he was belligerent about this. He was being right. He was being right and making her wrong, right? Instead of saying, you know what, I apologize. I did do that. I mean, like I said, how does he live with himself? Does he have a daughter? How does he live with himself around this? And she was like, I don't think he does. Come on. He must. You know, I equated it to having crumbs in your pocket. You know, like in your trousers pocket or your coat pocket, you've got this little corner of crumb in the corner of your pocket. He must have one crumb of a semblance for his behavior. He can't be that inhuman. He cannot be that inhuman. So I would love people to call in at 877, because I don't want to do all the talking tonight. 877-480-4120. Call in and give me your feelings about this. Give me your feedback. Because you know what? 1 in 3 women have experienced abuse, sexual abuse, and molestation. Like, you know, so call in. And, you know, I'm thinking about like, when I first came to America and I used to ride the 405 train, I was so ignorant, right? So on the 405 train, there used to be a guy that would get on the train and he would stand behind you and he would hump. And then like, literally, right? And so I got on the train and I'm like, this man is, you know, and I would move and he would move and he would move. And I didn't know, I didn't want to assume what was going on, but like, I was like, what the fuck is going on here, right? So anyway, finally he must have got to his stop, and this woman said to me, don't you ever let anybody do that to you again. And I was like, what was he doing? She goes, he's like one of those train humpers. I was like, oh my God, this is the world we live in, right? This is the world that we're living in at this moment. So I can get, like, if I'm 20, I think I was 20, I'm riding a train and somebody's doing that and I don't even know what they're doing. And you're 13 and these boys are doing this to you. Like, how do you deal with that? I mean, I didn't know what this man was doing. So I want to hear from people out there that have conversations. Again, 1 in 3 women are molested and abused in this country. That is 33% of the population. So that means like 4 women get together, 3 of them have been molested. That is like a lot. Women are dealing with a lot of things today. We don't know. Somebody comes to work and she's in a pissed off mood. We don't know what she's dealing with. You know, we have to come together as women and support each other. And we have to find safe spaces where we can speak about these things. We can erase these things. We can deal with these things so that we can actually be free in our life. So join me at 877-480-4120. Thank you. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? So Brett Kavanugh has been voted in, right? What is that like for us? I mean, what is that like for us? It's like Anita Hill all over again, but this time it's a white lady. Before she was a black lady. And so, you know, You know how Black women are depicted, right? She did this. She was the sexual abuser. She was the one that was, but now it's a white lady. So what next? What's his name? Clarence Thomas. He got in. Now it's like, how many years later is that? 30 years later. 30 years later. History is repeating itself. How much more does it have to repeat itself? What are we going to do? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just providing a platform for people to speak up, to say what they need to say, but I don't have the answers, So who has the answers? Who can help us remedy this situation? There are girls going to school right now that could be in a situation. I'm speechless. I really am speechless. I'd rather talk about my diabetes, to be honest, but I'm speechless. So, Monica, you're online and you're sending me prayers and things like that. Thank you. Why don't you call in and tell me what you're sending me prayers or applauding me for? Call in at 877-480-4120. What's your take on this conversation? What's your take on women and children and girls being abused and having fear and don't know how to speak up? What's your take on speaking to our children and telling them to be mindful or be careful, but they don't even know what careful actually means? Call in and let's have a conversation about it. Yeah. I'm sweating right now. I just need to take a breather. So this man has been sworn in. So he's going to be like lording over us with his, how is he really going to support women today? Like, how is he going to support us? Is he going to does he have resentment now towards the women of America about this? Or is he going to actually take a stand and support us? What is he going to do? How is he going to handle this situation? And now, I don't like to talk about 45, but the way he ridiculed that woman, that woman has been in hiding. She has to have security. I'm telling you, I'm not going to say thank God it was her, but I'd rather it be her than me, because I don't know if I could deal with that. It takes somebody. I couldn't even listen to her talk because she was like breaking down. She was breaking down inside her soul. So Heather, call in at 877-480-4120 and share. You usually have a lot to say. Share with me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this conversation. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Because literally, I am speechless. I'm speechless. I was riding in a taxi last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I was in a taxi. I went to do next door, which is, you can get buy stuff off your neighbors for cheap. And I was in a taxi, and there was a man and his wife. They'd just come back from a party. And at the party, they had met a friend of theirs that they hadn't seen in a good while. And she's a psychologist. Apparently, this lady had lost her memory for 4 days. She lost her memory for 4 days because, again, she got triggered by the Kavanugh situation. 40 years prior to, she had been a victim of sex abuse by classmates. She'd been drugged and raped. And the only person that she ever told about it was her husband. So when this conversation came up, she literally, her brain shut down. Now you'd say this is a psychologist, she should have handled this, but her brain shut down. Her memory went to protect her from the trauma that she experienced, so that she, just think about that. Your brain shuts down from a 40-year-old situation. Can you imagine how detrimental that must have been to her, for her brain to try to protect her in that way? She had to have all kinds of tests in the hospital to find out what was going on. Come to find out, it's because she had been a victim of this kind of abuse. Who's on the line? Hi, Heather. Welcome to Beyond
Noreen.
Potential. Live life your way.
How are you?
I am great. And yourself?
I'm good.
I know that you have a lot to say about this whole scenario.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm
bring
pissed.
it, my friend. Bring
I'm
it.
pretty, well, Now I'm pissed, but before I was pretty just depressed over it. I was pretty down over it. It's, I mean, the whole circumstances are ridiculous from the beginning to the end, but people have to go out and vote. I'm trying to figure out what states we can volunteer to go help register for people to vote. Because I feel like this state is going to be, our state's really going to be Democratic, but in other states, we got to get people out to vote. I feel like one thing I noticed is that, when Kavanaugh was young, he had Mark Judge kind of, egging him on. And now I feel like that's Trump's role, So there's always an authoritarian person getting him to do whatever it is he's doing.
What do you think he's going to do for women in the light of this situation? What can he do for women?
I think that he has really strong ideology. I don't necessarily think he's thinking of it for or against women. I mean, I think a lot of the ranting, like his craziness, bipartisan stuff, was really more about what Trump wanted him to say. I think that his ideology about what happens to be controlling women's bodies, with birth control and also with abortion, I think are going to be, quite different from what I would say the majority of women really want. And, it's hard to say. I don't think he'll necessarily, retaliate. I don't think that this experience has sort of radicalized him where he's going to now, use his position to pay back. I think that was more of Trump's stuff.
Heather, can I ask you to hold that
I do
thought?
think the direction he's going to take
Heather,
the Supreme Court and the country is not what we want.
Heather, can I ask you to hold that thought 1 minute while we take a break and we come right back?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
The best designs for your life start at home. I'm David Thiergartner, interior designer and host of At Home. Listen live Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time as we talk to the very best professionals about interior design and the design that's all around us, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you feeling unhappy with your body, shape, or size? Ever feel out of control with food? I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul. Join me to uncover the root to these imbalances and discover a permanent solution to living a healthy life. Join us every Wednesday at my new time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
TalkingAlternative.com.
So we're back on Beyond Potential, Live Life Your Way, and we're talking tonight about sexual assault and the assault on women by this situation with Justice Kavanugh, right? So Heather, what are your thoughts? I just saw he could be on this seat for the next 20 years, possibly 30 years. For the rest of his, 30, 40, 40 years. Let's say 40, right? He's 53. He can be.
Well, look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I hope she stays alive for the next I mean,
We gotta,
you know,
shoot her up with some drugs. Shoot her up with some drugs
For
to keep her alive.
sure.
Give her some
That's
formaldehyde.
number one. I mean, look, the whole thing, it's just, you know, I know that there's a lot of people who try to avoid politics.
Yes,
And
me,
little
I
by
do. I
little,
really do.
think
I really
that
try to avoid
Trump
it, but
has
you
done a
can't.
brilliant job pulling everybody in
Mhm.
because the whole way of life, you know, is threatened. But I think for women in particular, there was, you know, when Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas had, you know, what happened to her, a lot of women ran for Congress and Senate and everything because they were so outraged from what they saw, right? And I think that that's one positive use of, you know, the outrage. I think women are going to step up and voters are going to step up, you know, to really say, okay, we got to take back the country.
Right.
You know, because we're in a position right now, you know, and I'm not even going to say Republicans. It's not, I mean, I think Trump likes to make everything divisive, like Republicans versus this, men versus women, da-da-da. But, you know, it's more, he's controlling the House, the Senate, you know, like his radical ideas.
Do you really think that
ridiculous,
he's controlling?
whatever his agenda is. And,
Do
you know,
you really
I
think
one
that
of the
he's controlling?
dangers right now is that men turn against women and women turn against men. And that's not really the case. You know, I mean, there's always going to be, I mean, obviously, women have been going through this for a long time, but a lot of men have been assaulted too.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's ridiculous to say that women don't, you know, that men are in danger of all these false reporting because many women don't report sexual assault.
A lot of women don't
you know?
report.
One of the things that's happening, though, that is positive, if there's anything positive, is that it's creating a climate where people can talk about these things.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of these things have lived in the shadows and have lived in people's secrets and have lived in people's shame and have lived in people's, you know, whatever.
Michael agrees
and I
with
see
you.
many people posting like, this happened to me, that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's something about that, you know, and then I see some men, you know, who are now, you know, internalizing it, trying to understand it. And I think over time that leads to, you know, people being a little more understanding of each other or just, you know, really deciding what kind of world they want to live in.
My
and
theory
most people
is
don't want to live in.
My theory is we've all got to live here together, men and
the world
women.
that Trump and his buddies live in, you know?
We have to live here together. We have to live here together.
Right.
So how can we live here with honor and respect? I mean, how can we train our boy children and our girl children to get along and, you know, like teach, you know, children what to be like mindful of? And when we say be careful, and how do we talk to our sons? I mean, I'm sure there are boys out there that have been abused and raped and molested and that kind of stuff. It's equal. I mean, it's like, I'm imagining a man that was you know, if we had turned this situation around and have it be Kavanagh or somebody like Kavanagh had molested another man and this man is coming up to speak about it, that would have been like, that would have been awful.
Yeah, right, but we don't live in a society where men are even allowed to do this. I think
That's
some
what
of
I'm
what
saying.
happens to men in our society is that, you know, they're sort of, it's beaten into them to be men,
yes.
men, you know, or whatever that means,
Yes.
right? To have this male, you know, whatever persona, right? And so, I mean, there's a lot that with our society that I think has always been there and is now sort of getting some light shed on it. And people have to decide what they, you know, what they want. I mean, it's interesting to think about the subconscious reasons that lead people to behave that way, you know, overtly. And so I think each of us have to search our own subconscious and think, you know, what ideas do we harbor about, you know, other sex, other gender, you know, what kind of things do we do that takes advantage of others or doesn't, you know, and really like search that out for each of us.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
That's
We've
the
all
only
got to
way
be.
that we really make sense of something like this, because it's really sort of shocking, you know, I mean, to see, you know, people up there mocking her or just making this, I mean, it's even beneath us, you know, I mean, it's beneath, like, I think part of me just wants to tune out and be like, forget it, I'm not even watching this crap anymore. But I don't even think that's possible.
You can't. It's not possible.
It's like
it is.
our life
it's not. We don't have that
is
luxury. We don't have that luxury.
I think the only way really ultimately deal with this is consciousness, is to really have dialogues like what you're having, to look inside, you know, not only talking to people about others, but really look inside of each of us and see, you know, how are we part of the problem or how are we part of the solution, and what does that mean? You know, and how can we step it up? You know, and having dialogues with men, or having, you know, our men having dialogues with women, or, you know, and trying to have beginner's mind, trying to look at it like, hey, you know, I have these preconceived ideas. So what am I missing? You know, what's your experience? Tell me, you know, and not thinking that one man represents every man.
No, one man does not
everyone,
represent every man.
But it gets you closer.
Okay. One man does not represent every man, you know.
Right.
And it's not all men. We're not saying all men, because there are a lot of men. There are millions of men that are completely out.
Right, and I refuse to allow that to, you know, permeate my consciousness with that. Like this whole idea of divisiveness, or it's like this group or that group. No.
Right. So, Heather, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. And I just want to thank you for coming in on the show and giving me your 3 cents.
Thank you for having this dialogue.
Oh, thank you so much. Like, I do my best. I try my best to open a space
where
people
helps. I think
can.
it really does help.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, thank you for calling. So, on line 3, we have Gail. Hey, Gail, how are you?
Hi, Noreen. How are you? I'm so excited to connect with you on your show and all the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you. And I know you have a lot of opinions. I know you do a lot of at the United Nations. I want to know what's your thoughts and feelings about all this stuff that we're dealing with right now.
You know, I kind of like what you said to the young lady before. One person doesn't represent everything.
Right.
I really like that. And I think that it's important that we realize it. But at the same time, that one person, you know, I never realized until now how much the United States, or how much we as here are looked upon by the entire world community. And I think what this is doing is giving the world community the opportunity to be responsible for itself.
So
I
say
think
a little bit more
it's
about
pushing
that.
us to be responsible for ourselves individually and really connect on a collaborative level. I think also, too, we're running between different aspects of seeing, like, people vying for power because they don't know what to do in their sphere. I think a lot of everything that's happening is sphere-based.
Right.
And I think the other, you know, my only other thought is, you know, I often say this to a lot of young people and they get a little upset with me, but the youth are not the future. I say everyone is the future. I think, you know, one time we didn't focus whether you were young, old, or indifferent. And I think that it's pushing a separation between us and causing on a daily basis resentment. And not allowing people to grow and experience themselves. So I think it's, you know, like it's a divide and conquer strategy, so to speak. A lot of that's been used, but I also think people are coming together, finding out who they are. And I think we're birthing a new baby, like birthing a new world.
And it's hard, right? It's difficult
going through the growing
and it's painful.
pains. So that's basically my thought.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you calling in. I want to share with you my diabetes trail, and so you should be in contact with me so I can share with you.
I would love to, and thank you for inviting me, you know, on, and just, you know, I just want to say to the audience, the amazing work you're doing is so awe-inspiring every single day.
Thank you.
And the things that you share with us. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Have a great evening, and thanks for calling, and give me a call during the week, and we can talk about diabetes.
Yes, ma'am. Talk to you later.
All right, bye. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Noreen. It's
Hi,
so nice
how
to
are
see
you?
you.
How are
Thank
you
you.
doing?
I know you've got you're short on time, so I just want to thank you for covering this topic. And I'll just say a couple of things, if I may.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So first thing, as a hate crime survivor, I really get Dr. Ford. I get what she's gone through. I get it. And as a gay man, I get it even better because and you said that something earlier, men, it's not talked about much with men, especially gay men, you know? Politically, I'm not a politician. And what I've seen and what I'm experiencing and what I think is happening is the gentleman said something like it's birthing. There's a bubble that's getting burst. So,
I always like to call it a pimple or a whitehead.
Yeah, like a really nasty whitehead. And what's happening is the country is being confronted. Sexuality is not something that is openly talked about. Right. I think it's horrible that this has to come into our political system to sort of sway votes, you know? Right. So I think what you're doing, Noreen, is amazing. I think these conversations have to continue because action changes everything, you know? It took me 6 years of action to overcome PTSD. Wow. Dr. Ford, she's a psychologist. We get it. You know, it takes work. And there are a lot of victims out there who have repressed, you know, and you mentioned earlier there was that woman who lost her memory or something happened. Yeah, there's a lot of triggering. My roommate, she got triggered. She brought up her own assault issues, you know, and other female friends, you know what I mean? And I'm just going to speak on behalf of gay men. It's really hard for us to come forward and share that, yeah, it happens to us too. Right. Even straight men, you know? And it brings up the whole thing with the Catholic Church and the molestations and all these things, you know? It's just an uncomfortable conversation that needs to keep happening.
Yes, so that we become
so that
more
people
aware.
are empowered to continue to cause change. And that's all I'd like to say.
Great. So on that note, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show and giving me your 3 cents, because 2 is just not enough. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, I will keep this conversation going because it's a conversation that needs to be looked at, investigated, cleaned out for both men and women, you know? So yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, that's it. Like, we're at the top of the hour and that's it. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
You're welcome.
All right. Keep on looking.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Hi, are you interested in blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies? Then